3 things every HR manager should know about Medicare. Hi everybody, my name is Elliott Martin. I'm with Martin & Associates Insurance. We're an independent Medicare broker located in Newport Beach, California. Today we're going to be talking about the 3 things that every HR manager should know about Medicare. First, and most importantly, you're going to want to know what Medicare is and what the different parts are. Medicare is the federal health insurance program for people who are 65 and older, certain younger people with disabilities, or people with end-stage renal disease. Now there are 4 parts to Medicare, A, B, C, and D, but there are only 2 parts to original Medicare. And those are Part A, that's access to any hospital, any skilled nursing facility, anywhere in the United States as long as they're contracted with Medicare. There's also no cost to be enrolled into Part A of Medicare for most people, but there are still out-of-pocket costs involved with Part A of Medicare. And Part B of Medicare. Part B covers all the outpatient services like doctor's visits, specialists, any outpatient surgeries, things like chemotherapy, radiation, x-rays, lab tests, diagnostic tests, preventative services, physical therapy, did I say that yet? Ambulance trips, all those services are considered outpatient Part B services. Part B does have a cost to it, which starts at $135.50 a month in 2019. Part B gives complete nationwide access to any doctor, any specialist, any facility, anywhere in the United States as long as they're contracted and accept Medicare assignment, meaning they take original Medicare. But same as Part A, there are also out-of-pocket costs involved with Part B of Medicare. So Part A and Part B make up what's called original Medicare, and these are the benefits that people get from paying that Medicare tax their entire working careers. Side note, I have a Medicare 101 video that I go into more depth with the different parts of Medicare, the different plans on Medicare, and what people's options are, which I'll link to somewhere in the video frame here. Then there's Part C and Part D of Medicare, which we're only going to talk about briefly because this really only applies to people that are already enrolled into original Medicare A and B. Part C is called Medicare Advantage. Now this is a separate way that somebody can take their Medicare benefits. What happens here is that private insurance companies' Medicare plans actually take over your original Medicare benefits. Now instead of Medicare being responsible for your healthcare services and paying for them, the Medicare Advantage companies now are responsible. A lot of times these are all-in-one plans that include both services covered under Part A and Part B. They add on prescription coverage all in a nice little package for you. These are also government subsidized plans. Part D of Medicare is the prescription drug coverage. So in a case where somebody stays on original Medicare, adds supplemental insurance, they would also need to add on prescription coverage. Or if somebody chooses that Part C of Medicare, they usually a lot of times have prescriptions included in that all-in-one plan. The second thing that HR managers are going to want to know is, do your employees need to enroll into Medicare if they are continuing to work and stay on the group employer insurance? Now there are 2 criteria that I ask everybody who calls me who's planning on continuing on their employer group insurance and continuing to work. 1, does your employer have 20 or more employees? 2, is your current insurance and the prescription drug coverage on your current insurance considered credible coverage? Those are the magical words. If somebody says yes to both those questions, then they can continue on their employer insurance for as long as they're continuing to work. And they have the option to enroll into Part A, which would go secondary to their employer insurance. Then we would suggest that they opt out of Part B entirely, until of course they decide to retire and they lose their employer insurance benefits. Part B does have a cost to it, so that's why a lot of times people will delay their Part B of Medicare until they decide to retire. Now there's no restrictions or penalties for when people finally decide they want to enroll into Part B, as long as there's that group employer insurance, 20 or more employees at the company, and you've had credible coverage. You'll have what's called a special enrollment period at that time to enroll into Part B. Also, one other thing important here for any HR managers who have employees with health savings accounts, they will not want to enroll into any parts of Medicare at age 65, and there are certain rules about contributing to health savings accounts as people are getting closer to enrolling into Medicare. Usually you want to stop 6 months before you decide you want to enroll into Medicare. That way you avoid any tax penalties or any tax problems. Let's say we have Joe. Joe works for the local school district, and at age 68 he's finally deciding to hang up the cleats. Now at age 65, Joe did enroll into Part A of Medicare and opted out of Part B, which is what a lot of employees that continue to work decide to do. But now that he's retiring, Joe's going to be losing that employer group insurance. And he's not really sure what to do, so he calls up Elliott. Here's what I would tell him. Well, Joe, first you'll need to enroll into Part B of Medicare, and you can do that up to 3 months before you need it effective. And you'll have to complete 2 forms. A former employer verification letter signed off by HR or benefits, stating that you've had employer group insurance past age 65. The other form is a Part B enrollment form that you can complete on your own, and you'll want to put in the remarks section the effective date that you'd like your Part B to start. We suggest the first of the month after your last day of employer insurance. Once you have those 2 forms signed and completed, you're going to want to walk them into a local Social Security office. We've had people mail those forms in only to get them back weeks later to find out they had something missing on that form. Then once Joe has Part B waiting to be processed by Social Security, then we can talk about the secondary insurance that he can add on to his Medicare benefits. And even though there's a grace period for people to enroll into Part B after they retire, usually we don't suggest it. We usually suggest you have all your Medicare plans start as soon as your group employer insurance coverage ends. That way you have no lapses in coverage. So those are the 3 things that every HR manager should know about Medicare. And one last thing I wanted to mention is that myself and my dad, Ray Martin, we actually put on Medicare 101 presentations for school districts, county organizations, corporations all throughout California. And people and employees for those companies and organizations are so grateful to get this information on Medicare, because Medicare can be overwhelming. So if you're an HR manager and you feel your employees would benefit from a Medicare 101 educational presentation, feel free to give us a call. We'd be glad to do it, and of course at no cost. So if you enjoyed this video, please hit like. If you want to watch more videos like this in the future, then subscribe. And thank you everybody for watching. We'll see you next time.